What's up? Welcome in, guys. Farzin Vasugian here with you on a Thursday afternoon, talking some Chiefs. Free agency underway. The new league year is here. There is a lot to get into here. Of course, the big story within the last week for the Kansas City Chiefs involved Xavier Worthy and the situation involving his ex-fiance, not really sure what to call her right now. A lot of reports going with ex-fiance, which I think is probably safe to assume. And that story has certainly had a lot of twists and turns, especially on Saturday. And within the last 24 hours, there's a little bit of an update regarding that story. So we're going to start off with that in just a few minutes. Later on in the podcast, we'll react to some of the Chiefs moves in free agency involving left tackle Jalen Moore, Elijah Mitchell, Christian Fulton, talking about those moves and some of the players they have re-signed, such as Hollywood Brown and Nick Bolton. Trey Smith news as well to discuss, as well as players who have left Kansas City, including one big one that I felt like was going to be a big loss for the Chiefs. And also, could the Chiefs get Cooper Kupp? There is one former NFL standout who's calling for the Chiefs to go for Cooper Kupp services. I'll tell you who said that and whether that might be worth it or not. Going to touch on all of that here on this episode of the Chiefs Zone Podcast. Welcome in. My name is Farzin Vasugian. Thank you for joining me on this Thursday afternoon. I am back from Viva Las Vegas. Enjoyed the city, enjoyed hanging out, visiting Patrick Mahomes' home, which is nicknamed Arrowhead West. Always got to visit the GOAT's house whenever I'm in town. I will say this. I've always been curious about Vegas because I visited Vegas so many times. My brother and I, we've been curious for a long time about what is Vegas like outside of that. I've heard from several people. There was actually someone who I dated years ago. She's from Kansas City, ended up moving back to Kansas City. She actually lived in Vegas with her friend for a year. And every single person I have ever asked, I've said, what is Vegas like? What is it like to live in Vegas? And they basically say the same thing. They say outside of the Strip and Fremont, it's basically Overland Park. That is the description I get from every single person that's ever lived in Las Vegas. So I kind of wanted to, listen, it's one thing to learn from people, especially people who you really trust. But I've always believed, if there's something you really want to find out and learn about, you gotta take matters into your own hands and just kind of see for yourself. So I decided to visit West Summerlin. In fact, went around the Red Rock Casino area. It's actually a really nice area. It's pretty nice. Passed some really nice real estate on the way there. Actually saw, for the first time ever in person, I saw the UFC headquarters in the UFC Apex Center. That was pretty cool as a big UFC fan. But man, it's just on my way. I don't know what I was expecting. I know in some of like the bigger cities, like in Reno and even in some smaller cities, they have like the Vegas light up thing because that's just the way all of Nevada really does things. And I've seen that in pictures, never seen that in person. But I don't know what I was expecting. I go to Red Rock. Red Rock is actually, no different than a Mirror Star Casino here in Kansas City. I actually think their food court options are a lot better than what you see at the Venetian or the Cosmopolitan and several other places. But yeah, I decided to travel over to west of the Strip for the first time. I've been to Blue Diamond Saloon, which is a Chiefs bar in Vegas. Unfortunately, they recently decided to shut down that bar. Man, that's unfortunate, man. I'll never forget being there when Ryan Fitzmagic, of all people, threw that game-winning touchdown pass to beat the Patriots and help the Chiefs get the 2 seed back when the 2 seed had more value with the bye week. So it is sad that things come to an end. Lee says Vegas is a drier climate than Overland Park. I certainly, yeah, you're right. And I've been to Vegas many times, different times of the year. And I can certainly attest to that. The humidity in Overland Park and the Kansas City area in general is pretty bad. But I've always been curious. I've always wanted to know, what is Las Vegas like outside of the Strip and outside of Fremont? I finally got to experience it. I can confirm there is nothing too thrilling. One of the Uber drivers, the Uber driver that took my brother and I to West Summerlin to where Red Rock is, he actually told me, he said he is a chef at Red Rock. And Dana White, the president of the UFC, will actually go there late at night because that's, when there are fewer people there. And basically he doesn't get bothered. And he knows, all the important people there, the managers, all those things. That guy has a lot of pull in that city. I mean, if you follow the UFC very closely, you kind of already know that with Dana White. But yeah, there are certainly some things I learned about Dana White that I didn't know before. So, but breaking news within the last, 10, 15, 20 minutes, the Chiefs have signed a quarterback. Gardner Minshew is a quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs now. Oh, the Chiefs are so screwed if Patrick Mahomes gets hurt. Listen, I've never really been into Minshew mania. In fact, out of all the backup quarterbacks the Chiefs have had over the years in the Mahomes era, Matt Moore, Chad Henne, who was the guy from Mizzou? He played in Week 18 for the Chiefs last year. Oh, what's his name? Blaine Gabbert. And then last year, of course, was Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz, I felt like, was the most accomplished of all of them. Chad Henne, as a quarterback, backup quarterback for the Chiefs, certainly delivered in big moments when he really needed to. Gardner Minshew, man, I don't know about this one. That's an odd one. That is a very odd one for sure. You know what? I was actually looking this morning at backup quarterbacks that are available, and I saw Cooper Rush, who had filled in for Dak Prescott several times in the past. I've always liked Cooper Rush. I've always felt like he'd be a good, at least could compete for a starting quarterback somewhere in the NFL. I was actually hoping the Chiefs could get Cooper Rush. But I don't know. Gardner Minshew ends up being the guy. I mean, he's a very different quarterback than Patrick Mahomes. So, yeah, I see a lot of you guys in the comments talking about the mustache competition, the hairdo, all of that. Yeah, that's going to be interesting in Kansas City for sure. That is going to be interesting for sure. Maybe we can discuss Minshew Mania more on another podcast. But, yeah, that is the breaking news within the last 20 minutes. The Chiefs have signed Gardner Minshew in Kansas City, according to several insiders in the NFL. I do want to get into the podcast and talk about some of the big news that we've had regarding free agency and whether or not the Chiefs could get Cooper Kupp. But the big news from Saturday and is still on, we thought it was over, but it's not quite over yet. The Xavier Worthy drama. Now, let me just set the picture here because we learned on Saturday morning, and this was as I was packing, getting ready to go to the airport. And I was like, man, I got to say something on this because I can't do a live stream because I'm about to leave my house. So I did a quick reel on this. And we basically, the details we knew that morning was that he was arrested and charged for assault, allegedly strangled a family member. Now, in some states, a family member may have some different meanings. If this is a boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, legally speaking, in some states, that's not considered a family member. But that's who it was here. Tia Jones, who I believe a lot of reports are now saying that she is Xavier Worthy's ex-fiance. I think we can assume that is the case right now. But, and by the way, Tia Jones is not just Xavier Worthy's fiance or ex-fiance now. She's if I'm not mistaken, an Olympian. I don't know exactly what her accomplishments are or what exactly she's done in the Olympics. I'm gonna guess she, I mean, again, this is not someone that people just have never heard of or don't know. I mean, she's a track and field athlete. She's 24 years old. She's competed in the 100 meter dash. In the World Under 20 Championships, she won a gold medal in 2016, 4x100 meter relay, won a gold medal in 2018 in the 100 meter hurdles, and also a bronze back in 2016, 400 meter hurdles. So she is somewhat of an accomplished athlete. If you look at her Wikipedia, and I know people have their opinions about Wikipedia, but a lot of times I think it's safe to rely on because they have all those little notes on the side to back up whatever is being written about someone on Wikipedia. She ended the engagement in March of 2025 after filing a restraining order against him after his arrest for assaulting her. Now, it does say that it just goes with Worthy assaulting her. And that was the assumption I had, and I think a lot of people had as well, because Worthy was not only arrested, but he was charged for it. Now, I'll be honest, I certainly spoke too soon on this one. And the reason I did is because I thought if someone was charged for this, I think that's an indication that whatever happened ended up being the case here. Now, there are some weird details on this. About an hour or two after word got out about Xavier Worthy's arrest and assault charge, his attorneys, which he has two of, they issued a statement saying that Worthy asked his fiance to leave vacate the property, which is the term they use, not leave, vacate. And I think that's very important here, because Worthy had learned that she had cheated on him, according to the statement from the attorneys. So she, according to the attorneys, destroyed the room, made a mess, allegedly scratched his face, pulled his hair. Worthy declined to press charges. That's interesting. They also said that they have full faith that the investigation will support Worthy and they expect the truth to come out. They also claim that there's photographic evidence of all of these things that support Xavier Worthy. They released another statement, kind of repeating some of the things that they had said, but basically responded to, well, they didn't necessarily respond, but basically said that Tia Jones' claims were baseless and that they're going to continue to cooperate with Williamson County Police. 8 hours after the story first got out, the district attorney decided to the charges against Xavier Worthy, the assault charges, would be dropped or declined. I think there's some confusion as to whether or not he was ever charged in the first place. The Williamson County District Attorney's name is Sean Dick. He said that he would not accept the case and that the county had spoke to multiple witnesses and his office is no longer accepting the case at this time. That's a very interesting set of details there. Wednesday night, we have learned that Tia Jones hired not one, not two, not three, but 4 attorneys. 4 attorneys. Her team had claimed that they had filed for an application for a protective order against Worthy, basically a restraining order, for, quote, based his violent actions. That is a quote, based his violent actions. In fact, I'm going to show you guys, for those of you watching on Facebook and YouTube, and again, I appreciate everyone here tuning in to the live stream. This is the letter here. I'm going to try to zoom in as much as I can here. This is the letter. Look at the date. Look at the date up top. What is the date today? The date today is March 13th, 2025. The date that this letter, the stamp that this letter got was March 15th, 2024. Now, this letter came out Wednesday night, so it should have said March the 12th. Instead, it says March the 15th. So they got the day wrong. They also got the year wrong. This is from 2024. We're obviously in the year 2025. I don't know if somebody went through Doctor Strange's little time warp or if the Avengers provided a little bit of because, you know, the Avengers, they figured out time travel, all that stuff. Yeah. I don't know if If that happened, Joshua, you will never convince me to be a Blues fan. I got my Vegas Golden Knights. I actually forgot to mention, I actually got to visit the Vegas Golden Knights store that they have west. I've been to the one that's attached to T-Mobile Center. Or I'm sorry, T-Mobile Arena. T-Mobile Center's in Kansas City. But the Vegas Golden Knights store, the Arsenal store they have out west in Vegas, that's actually where the Golden Knights practice. So my brother and I kind of just hung out there, looked around. We saw all these young kids ice skating, doing hockey practice. Man, I wish I learned how to play hockey. The two sports, I played a little bit of football and some basketball and soccer as well. If I could go back and do it all over again, I would have loved to have learned wrestling and hockey. Man, when I see hockey players fall down and get back up and start skating, I'm like, whoa, I can't do that. But anyway, looking at this letter here from the attorney, I'm going to read the first sentence out loud to you guys. And I'm telling you now, this is not a very well-written letter. The date is already incorrect. Here's the first sentence. Today, Tia Jones filed an application for a protective order against Xavier Worthy, based his violent actions against her culminating on the night of March 7th, 2025. That is the first sentence. It continues. Based upon the truthful information provided by Ms. Jones, a judge has granted a temporary protective order on her behalf. She is fully cooperating with law enforcement as they continue to actively investigate the violence that occurred that night. Ms. Jones has chosen to use her voice to speak up for herself. Yes, Ms. Jones has chosen to speak up for herself through 4 attorneys. Okay. The letter continues, and it says, let me zoom out here a little bit. There we go. In doing so, she looks forward to the facts and circumstances of that night coming to light through the formal legal process and getting the justice that she deserves. She appreciates the support that she has received thus far. There's a signature there. I have no idea whose signature that is. Part of the signature is covering Angelica Cogliano's name. That's not a very professional look. The other attorneys are Addie Miro, Leslie Booker, and Denise Hadiran. I hope I said that correctly. And it says attorneys for Tia Jones. Now, you guys know Zach Stegna. He's been on this podcast many times. He texted me earlier today, and he said that these are 4 attorneys from 3 different law firms. Why would you need 4 different attorneys from 3 different law firms after the district attorney had essentially refuted your claim of assault here? Look, I don't know the details to all of this. None of us do. None of us were there. We don't know what happened, what didn't happen. Obviously, there's a lot to unpack here. Let me just say this. I spoke to Eddie Law, who's also been on this podcast many times, about these kinds of things. And he's told me that if he was ever a professional athlete, and I know it's hard to talk about these hypothetical scenarios, well, what would you do if you were in this situation? But he says that he would not ever date anyone until he was retired from the sport. I don't know. That's a weird one. And I don't know how long these two have been together. I mean, I believe they've been together well before he even got drafted by the Chiefs, which was 11 months ago. But I'll say it. Xavier Worthy, he's 21. He turns 22 next month, which is still very young. I think part of the problem in our society today, I think there are a lot of people, especially people who have a lot of money, who want to get engaged and married at a very young age. Listen, I remember when I was 19, 20, I'd graduated from high school and I'm in college. I thought I knew the world. A lot of guys tend to think that at 18, 19, 20, a lot of guys tend to think that. And then the older you get, the more you realize, the more you don't know. I know Xavier Worthy is in this position in his life right now where he's 21 years old. He just played in the Super Bowl. Granted, it didn't go Kansas City's way, but I suppose he had some nice stats to go with it. But he has this great life. I mean, he's an NFL player. He's a first-round draft pick. He got a lot of hype for the fastest 40 time in NFL Combine history. I mean, the Combine's a huge deal in the NFL. We all know that. And that Combine run helped him go from being a late second-round pick to a late first-round pick. So this guy's living a really good life. And if he keeps up his level of play, he's going to get a lot more money in the NFL. I think a lot of times what happens is guys tend to want to commit to a woman right away because they just signed that first NFL contract. But I will say this. I don't think it's all on him. I think part of the problem is that some NFL players, and not just limited to the NFL, I'm sure this happens in the NBA and other sports. I think what happens is a really good professional athlete or a college athlete goes from playing collegiately to professionally, and the person they're dating may not know how to handle it. I think some of these players, they have family members that don't know how to handle the fame and the money that comes with it. And listen, obviously, talking about the Chiefs and discussing the Chiefs the last several years, we've certainly come to learn about Super Bowl tickets and all these other things. I can't say names because a lot of these things that I've been told have been off the record, but I can tell you for a fact that there are a lot of Chiefs players who get contacted by people that they barely knew in high school or college, and they ask for Super Bowl tickets. They're like, oh, hey, I'm a big supporter of yours. We know each other. Wink, wink, right? I mean, there are a lot of people who reach out to you wanting things when they hardly gave a shit about you when they actually knew you in high school and college. And now, because you're up high in the world, you're getting ready to play in your first, second, third, fourth, fifth Super Bowl for some of these guys. Some of these guys all of a sudden have a lot of friends that they never knew existed. Listen, I can give you a little bit of a minor example. I used to be the stadium DJ for the Kansas City Royals, which is a pretty cool job. And because I work in that department, the media production crew, you know, some of the people in media production will put their friends, family members up on the video board because everyone loves to be up on the video board at a sporting event, right? And all of a sudden, my number got out there to people who I did not even know existed. People wanted me, they're texting me their seat number, their info. I'm like, who the fuck are you? I don't know you. Why am I putting you on the video? I have no idea who you are. And then I get contacted by people who I hardly knew. Like, I knew of them, but hardly ever knew them from high school or college. And they're like, hey, put us up on the video. My boyfriend and I want to be on Kiss Cam. It's like, I hardly ever talk to you, and now you want me to do favors for you? Like, that's not happening. So I can relate to an extent. The only difference is, you know, I didn't make millions of dollars doing what I did. But I can understand how annoying this would be, where you get all of these people who you barely knew, and suddenly they want things from you. My whole point with this is a guy like Xavier Worthy certainly has learned a major life lesson here, because this didn't happen all of a sudden overnight. I mean, there were certainly issues culminating to the events of the alleged cheating, the alleged assault here. Both of them have been accused of assaulting the other. I mean, again, Xavier Worthy's attorneys claim that they have photographic evidence that support Worthy. But the whole thing here is that you got to pick and choose who you're surrounded by. I'll tell you right now, I had a friend in high school. Actually, I had known this guy longer than anyone else that I had known among my high school classmates. He and I, we were actually elementary classmates from another school district. And we ended up reconnecting in high school, hanging out, being friends, all that. But I'll tell you right now, this guy got in a lot of trouble. And I'm not talking, you know, going to the principal's office trouble. I'm talking legal trouble. And I just realized that, you know, you graduate from high school, everyone's, you know, kind of doing their own thing afterwards. And I kind of realized And this guy keeps getting into trouble. If I keep hanging out with this guy, even if I never did anything, I will be put in handcuffs just for being associated with this guy, just for hanging out with this guy. What did I do? I just cut the guy off. Now, I don't know what he's up to. I hope he's doing well. Hopefully not getting into any more trouble, but I could not take that risk. I had to certainly look out for myself in those situations. When you're an NFL player, man, you got to be very careful. We all know about the Kareem Hunt incident that happened many years ago. In fact, there were several incidents Kareem Hunt was involved in. Kareem Hunt has not been involved in any more incidents for quite some time. Ever the same year the Chiefs cut him. Was that a coincidence? Probably not. Kareem Hunt probably made some decisions as to who he surrounds himself with. Look at Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill had some serious child abuse allegations against him. And once the details came out, it kind of put him in the clear. Now, unfortunately for Tyreek Hill, he keeps surrounding himself with people who want to sue him. I mean, you got to be very, very careful with what you're doing and who you're hanging out with, who you surround yourself with. That includes your own agent. Man, you got to make sure you are not surrounding yourself with people who are going to get you in trouble. Because even though Xavier Worthy's name was cleared, the mugshot is still out there, and people just read that initial first breaking news. Oh, he got arrested. He definitely must have been in trouble. He says what we learned from the Hunt situation is you don't kick hookers in the head. I don't think it was a head kick now, from what I recall, but point taken at the end of the day. I mean, listen, you gotta, by the way, the Xavier Worthy story does have elements of Kareem Hunt and Tyreek Hill mixed in it. Tyreek Hill was accused of doing something he supposedly never did. And then in the Kareem Hunt one, the one that people only know about is the video where he shoved and kicked her. Now, if you actually read the details from the Kareem Hunt incident, what happened was those two women, one who which he got into a physical altercation with, they were underage, not realizing Kareem Hunt not realizing that they were underage. So when, because you see some cute girls, you say you play in the NFL, you let them hang out with you, and when Kareem Hunt realized, hey, they're underage, well, he decided to do the right thing at that moment and say, you got to leave. Unfortunately, they escalated it. Kareem Hunt kind of lost his cool in that moment there, and that's what happened. You guys saw the rest of it. Again, which leads me to my point. Whatever you do, and I said this already, but it's worth repeating. Whatever you do, whoever you're hanging out with, it all matters, because you hang out with the wrong person. You hang out with people you don't even know. It could get you in trouble. It could certainly get you in trouble there. I mean, listen, it's embarrassing that this kind of thing is out there. Listen, we've all had breakups before. Maybe some people have had breakups that have gotten really terrible where cheating was involved, which seems to be the issue here. I mean, listen, some breakups they end physically, which I'm not saying is right, but that's just kind of that's what happens. And unfortunately for Xavier Worthy, this has now got out there in the public. It's embarrassing. No one ever wants to hear that you and your significant other had a serious issue where cheating was a deal, and there was back and forth hitting. Who knows what really happened? But this is never a good thing. I thought we saw the end of this, but it appears that Tia Jones is not giving up. So we'll keep things locked in here as it goes on. But I'm telling you right now that that attorney letter right there, I mean, that's a horrible letter. I had when I was writing for the student newspaper in college, there was a soccer player. Her name was Tatiana, and I misspelled her name, which, certainly understandable, easy to misspell. But my editor pulled me aside and said, look, you can't be misspelling someone's name. I mean, if you're misspelling someone's name, why should anyone ever trust you with anything? He's right. So if the attorneys cannot even get not the incorrect date and the incorrect year, how can we even trust these attorneys in general? Which, by the way, 4 attorneys from 3 different firms. I mean, that's just not a really good look for Tia Jones here. What's the end game? What are you trying to pull out here? I don't know. There's a lot to unpack from that one. All right, let's move on here and talk about some Chiefs football, actual football, and talk about free agency. We already talked about the Chiefs tendering Matt Araiza and Mike Caliendo. They re-signed Hollywood Brown. This was during the 8-hour cycle where the Xavier Worthy news was happening. People thought this was in response to the Xavier Worthy news. I don't think that was the case. I truly don't. I think the Chiefs had very strong intentions of wanting to keep Hollywood Brown. They re-signed Nick Bolton. That was a surprise to me, a huge surprise. And I think that was a really good move on Kansas City's end. There are a lot of Chiefs fans going back and forth about whether this was a good move or not. This is a great move for Kansas City. You've got to keep Nick Bolton. Now, financially, I wasn't sure if this was doable, but they found a way to make it work, and I'll get into the restructures a little later on here. But Nick Bolton, sure, not the greatest pass protector, but man, what he does against the run has really made a difference. And also pressuring quarterbacks. I mean, Nick Bolton, one of the best linebackers in the NFL today. And again, say what you want about his pass protection, all that, but this guy's made some game-saving plays. He was the reason why Isaiah Likely's toe was out of bounds. I mean, people kind of blow that play out of proportion. They're like, oh, the Chiefs won that game because Isaiah Likely could not stay in bounds. Well, yeah, sure, but why couldn't he stay in bounds? Because Nick Bolton was right there, not letting him get squarely proportionate to where he could keep his feet in bounds. That's why. A couple of weeks later against the Falcons, what do people make a big deal out of in that game? Oh, the Chiefs got away with interference in the end zone. Okay, they got the ball back, and they got some very nice makeup calls on that drive. But what happened on 4th and inches? You had Chris Jones and Mike Pennell, Treshaun Wharton, Leo Chenal, plug some holes there. And who blows that play up for a 3-yard, 4-yard loss? Nick Bolton. Nick Bolton made some game-saving plays right there. I mean, think of, this is a defensive player's equivalency of a game-winning touchdown. I mean, unless you actually pick up the ball and run all the way for a score to win the game. I mean, that was Nick Bolton's game-winning touchdown right there, to not allow Isaiah Likely to stay in bounds, to not allow Bijan Robinson to get a first out. In fact, losing yards with the game on the line on 4th and inches. So I think that was a good move to keep Nick Bolton. Now, we talked about Trey Smith receiving the franchise tag. He went ahead and signed his franchise tag, which was a surprise to me. Only 2 teams used the franchise tag this year. The Bengals on T. Higgins, which is quite a disaster there with all the issues they have trying to keep their key players. And then the Chiefs with Trey Smith. And it seems like the Chiefs are not going to have any of the franchise tag drama because Trey Smith went ahead and signed his deal, which I thought was a surprise. Some Chiefs fans are not happy about this one. I'll say this right now. I actually like that the Chiefs and Trey Smith agreed to sign the deal. The franchise tag, rather, I should say. This gives the Chiefs a little bit more time to work out some other contracts because they've got to figure out the cap space for the future. And it allows them to figure out what they can do with Trey Smith in the future. So I like that they were able to get the franchise tag drama out of the way for now. I like it a lot. A lot of Chiefs fans not happy about it. I am. They re-signed Cole Christensen, a linebacker who plays some special teams. Doesn't play much on defense. They re-signed long snapper James Winchester, which is some good news right there. Their special teams unit, which consists of Harrison Butker, Matt Araiza, who was tendered, and James Winchester, who was re-signed. James Winchester is the second longest tenured player on the team behind Travis Kelce. Been on the team since 2015. Now, as far as newcomers on the team, they did add a left tackle. Unfortunately, it was not the one that I was hoping they would get and Ronnie Stanley. He ended up re-signing with the Ravens, but they got Jalen Moore from the 49ers. Probably not a name that a lot of people were thrilled to see here. Jalen Moore has been a backup for most of his career, backing up Trent Williams, standout offensive tackle for the 49ers, which, by the way, the 49ers, they are dealing with a lot of turnover, a lot of it. Now, Trent Williams has missed some games over the years, and that allowed Jalen Moore to step in and play and start some games. Stat-wise, not necessarily the best. I'll say this right now. I mean, I think we're supposed to trust Brett Veach on this one here. Now, I have been critical on Brett Veach that he has gotten the left tackle, really the offensive tackle position in general, wrong. He's just missed on it. Whether it's ever since cutting Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz, Andrew Wiley, Orlando Brown, Donovan Smith, Wanye Morris, Jawan Taylor, Kingsley Suamataia. The offensive tackle position has not gone well for Kansas City. Why is this going to be different? I don't know. I'm not here to sugarcoat this. I'm not here to tell you guys that this is going to be that Jalen Moore is going to be the savior of the left tackle position here. He was drafted in 2021 in the 5th round, and I only make a point of that because ever since 2021, the Chiefs have been trying to figure out the left tackle spot. That was the same calendar year where they cut Eric Fisher. What do you guys think? Do you guys like this, or are you guys kind of puzzled by this one? Or are you guys at a wait and see? Because I kind of wait. I went from wait and see to I don't really know. I'm not so confident about this one. Blame Andy Heck, Joshua says. Some people, are blaming Andy Heck. Look, you don't need an Eric Fisher or a Willie Roaf caliber offensive tackle. You just need someone that's not going to get beat every other damn play, which is what Orlando Brown, Donovan Smith, Kingsley Suamataia, Wanya Morris all did. Your best offensive tackle since Eric Fisher was the guy who you just traded in Joe Thuney. By the way, some people in the national media are making way too big of a deal about this. Oh, they traded they need an offensive line, but they just traded their best one. They're acting like Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith don't exist in this offense, specifically the offensive line. Chris says, can't be worse than what we've had the last couple of years. See, that's what I said about Donovan Smith. And then I said that about King. Okay, we're back on the live stream. Anyway, I said that that it can't get any worse with all those other guys. Donovan Smith, Kingsley Suamataia, Wanya Moore. It's like, man, we just kind of keep going through this carousel of left tackles here. So I don't really know what to expect. If he is above average, it's a win for me, man. The Chiefs have not had an above average offensive tackle since Eric Fisher. I mean, Orlando Brown's been bad. I don't know how he got the Pro Bowl votes. I mean, then again, like, you can't really take Pro Bowl votes seriously, especially at the offensive line. I think a lot of people just go with name recognition and whoever's on a good team. That's really who gets voted into the Pro Bowl at offensive tackle. I mean, if Orlando Brown was that good, he would not play for 3 different teams in 4 years. I mean, that's just the truth. Donovan Smith had some success in the past. They were hoping he would probably revert to being a good tackle. DJ Humphries has also been in the fold. Is he going to come back? Probably not. I mean, the Chiefs certainly have some options. They could still bring back DJ Humphries, but I don't know. I don't know what's going to be the case there. That's going to be interesting. That's going to be interesting. I hate to just not give much, but I don't really know what to say about Jalen Moore. I mean, there are a lot of unknowns with Jalen Moore. Honestly, this feels like a rookie. It feels like the Chiefs drafted an offensive tackle, because when you draft an offensive lineman, sure, or when you draft anyone for that matter, you know their skill set, you know what they did and didn't do in college. But a lot of that doesn't matter until they play on an NFL field. I kind of feel the same with Jalen Moore. It's like, okay, he was a backup. Okay, had some moments here and there, but that was as a fill-in guy. This guy is essentially going to be relied on to be your full-time left tackle. I don't know if I like that. Not really a big fan of that. I know Cam Robinson was out there. Cam Robinson does allow a lot of sacks, but I suppose that would have been a better option than Jalen Moore. But the Chiefs feel pretty good about Jalen Moore, so they brought him in. They also have a running back, Elijah Mitchell, coming in from San Francisco. The Chiefs snapping not one, but two offensive linemen, or offensive players, from the 49ers. Probably just a coincidence more than anything else, but that's just the way things panned out for the Chiefs in free agency. I guess this spells the end of Kareem Hunt. I know a lot of Chiefs fans are anticipating that the team could maybe go after a guy like Cam Scadaboo or Devin Neal in the second or third round of the draft. Potentially, I don't know. But there's a lot for the Chiefs to figure out at the running back position. Isaiah Pacheco dealt with that injury. Can he go back to being what he was his first 2 years? Which it wasn't a top 10 running back, but a very good running back at the very least. If the Chiefs were a run-first football team, Pacheco would probably have had 1,000 yards both seasons, his rookie season and his second season in the NFL. Fell just short of getting 1,000 yards his second season. When you look at his career, Elijah Mitchell has averaged 4.7 yards per carry during his time with the 49ers. So we'll see what happens. But Elijah Mitchell, part of this Chiefs offense. And you know Andy Reid likes those pass-catching running backs. So we'll see how much they try to use him as that kind of running back. We saw it with Jamal Charles, Spencer Ware. Kareem Hunt did a good job of that. His first stint in Kansas City, a little bit of that in his second stint with the Chiefs. But it does appear as if Kareem Hunt, his time with Kansas City, his second stint at least, has come to an end for right now. Another player the Chiefs got, cornerback Christian Fulton from the Chargers. This is someone that does have a lot of playing experience, has played a lot of snaps for the Chargers, started some games. I think the way that this is going to pan out, and I saw Jalen Watson's reaction on Twitter. I guess he was shocked by this move. I don't think this is a move that spells the end of Jalen Watson in Kansas City. Not at all. In fact, I think it's a good thing for Jalen Watson. I have seen the speculation, and I tend to agree with this. I think what's going to happen is Christian Fulton and Jalen Watson, I think those two guys are going to be your starting cornerbacks, your outside cornerbacks, and Trent McDuffie is probably going to go back to playing the nickel or the slot cornerback position, which is where he excelled and thrived. And he's thrived really everywhere. But I do find that one very interesting. They also signed tight end Robert Tonyan. They signed him to a futures deal, or at least on the practice squad towards the end of the season. Never really saw much of him, but they're bringing him back, and we'll see what they do, especially with Jared Wiley suffering that injury. How is he going to look coming back from that injury? Jody Fortson also got hurt as well. So the Chiefs were very thin at the tight end position this season. And I believe Robert Tonyan is someone that they would like for depth purposes if they feel like Jared Wiley might not be a full go. I mean, you have the entire offseason, but still, I think that insurance policy is certainly nice there to have. Here are some players who've moved on from the Chiefs. We know about Joe Thuney. Samaje Perine returned to the Cincinnati Bengals after a brief stint with the Broncos and the Chiefs. Justin Watson has signed with the Houston Texans. The Chiefs released Matt Dickerson. We don't know where he's going to go yet. This is a big one right here. A big loss for Kansas City. Treshaun Wharton with a big contract signing, which he very well deserves. Playing for the Carolina Panthers now. on a 3-year deal. I mean, this guy, his run stopping ability might have been one of the best among defensive tackles in the NFL. He absolutely was due for a big payday, and I don't think Kansas City was able to afford that. So, it is what it is. We know that dynasties are not able to keep everyone. We know the Patriots dynasty, they were unable to keep every single player. So that's just the way things roll. Justin Reed has signed with the Saints. He'll be playing alongside some former Chiefs there. Tyrann Mathieu is there. Who was Colin Saunders is also there. They recently released Willie Gay, though, but he never played alongside Tyrann Mathieu. I don't even think not even in Houston, but they do have a very similar career path. Going from Houston to Kansas City to New Orleans. So Justin Reed's most recent game with the Chiefs, his last game with the Chiefs was in New Orleans, the Super Bowl loss, and he's going to play the next 3 years in New Orleans. DeAndre Hopkins has signed with the Ravens. This was a 1-year deal worth up to $6 million. It's a $5 million deal. I was hoping Hopkins would come back, but I was not expecting it because I thought Hopkins would have been getting a lot more money than that. Listen, Hopkins is the first ballot Hall of Famer, in my opinion. Maybe not having a championship could be held against him for a first ballot, but he's a Hall of Famer. But right now, I mean, he has dropped some passes. And I know people are making a big deal about the drop against the Eagles in the Super Bowl. Guys, the game was over by that point. I even said it at the time. Now, would it have been nice to at least try to see what kind of a comeback you could have maybe assembled? I suppose, yeah. But I don't know. My whole thing was, if I had to pick between DeAndre Hopkins and Hollywood Brown, I would have said Hollywood Brown. And I'm not saying that because Hollywood Brown resigned and Hopkins moved on. I said that before, during the offseason. I felt like the Chiefs would have only brought back one. And I feel like the better of the two would have been Hollywood because he's younger, he's faster, and I think he established a really good chemistry with Patrick Mahomes last year in the offseason, in OTAs and in training camp. And I understand you don't win football games in OTAs and training camp. No, not at all. But you have to establish some sort of a rapport with your quarterback. And Hollywood Brown coming in with all the hype certainly did that. Unfortunately, we never saw Hollywood Brown be able to play a full season with the Chiefs. Rashee Rice, I know someone in the chat was asking about Rice's potential suspension. That's still unknown right now. We are expecting Rice to receive some sort of a suspension this season. The Xavier Worthy thing, I guess we can't close the book on that one 100% yet. But I do think he'll be in the clear unless there's some photo or video evidence that can prove otherwise. But as far as the wide receiver position goes, I do think Hollywood is the better option because he's younger, faster, and he's had that chemistry with Patrick Mahomes already. Here's the other thing, too. Hopkins is going to a run-first football team. I'm not saying that's a horrible thing for Hopkins, but if there was an offense that really wanted his services, don't you think they would have paid more than $5 or $6 million and would have gone to an offense where they throw the ball a lot more? And listen, I think Lamar Jackson certainly had his best year by far in the NFL. Certainly, the narrative that Lamar can't do anything but just run is incorrect. I mean, Lamar can definitely throw it. Not as well as, a Patrick Mahomes, a Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, those guys. But he does enough to win you football games. It's not the style of offense a lot of other teams run, but it worked for Baltimore. It's won them a lot of games in the past. So I think that's my reaction to DeAndre Hopkins going to the Ravens. The last one, this one came earlier today. Joshua Uche, who the Chiefs acquired from the Patriots, he is going to the Eagles. The Eagles lost Josh Sweat. He is going to the Cardinals. I think that is a big get for the Cardinals. Listen, we never really saw Joshua Uche. I guess he was supposed to be an insurance policy in case Charles Omenihu was unable to play, who is still available, by the way. There was some hype that, if Joshua Uche gets playing time, he can certainly rack up some sacks and do some good things for your defense. But we never saw that in Kansas City. Didn't see that. Patrick Mahomes and Chris Jones, they restructured their deals right before the new league year Wednesday morning, taking less money for this season, but kicking the can down the road, getting more in the future. Listen, here's what I'll say, because I know their cap number is pretty high for the future. First of all, the Chiefs will figure that out when they get there. And it's likely going to be where they sign them to new deals and extend them to where they can even out those numbers for the future. But I will say this. This is what championship teams do. This is what dynasties do. You saw this in the Patriots organization. Not so much with Tom Brady because he was already willing to play for less money. But the Patriots certainly moved around some contracts here and there during that dynasty run. This is what successful organizations do. It's funny. Someone tagged me in a post. I guess a Cincinnati radio host who covers the Bengals. He actually shared the news that the Chiefs restructured deals with Chris Jones and Patrick Mahomes. And I think we know there's a lot of disdain between Bengals fans and Chiefs fans. And when this radio host shared the news that the Chiefs did this, a lot of the Bengals commenters said, well, I hate the Chiefs, but this is what winning organizations do. It's like, wait a minute. Bengals fans complimenting the way the Chiefs are operating? Huh. Oh, yeah. Says a lot about that franchise because they've got three great players. They can't even get one of them to sign to a deal. They keep waiting, and they want to make Jamar Chase the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history, but they let who was it for the Raiders? Max Crosby get the big deal, and then Myles Garrett got a bigger deal. And that, in turn, also impacts Trey Hendrickson because he's a defensive end, just like Myles Garrett and Max Crosby. So not a 2-for-1 you want if you're Cincinnati. By the way, I see your comment, Michael, about a lot of Eagles players leaving. Yeah, I still think the Eagles are going to be a good football team, though. People think this is going to be the end of the Eagles. I don't see that. I do think the 49ers have a downfall coming. I mean, sure, they already had that last year, but you could have easily said, hey, look, they dealt with all of these injuries. Now it's like, wait a minute. The 49ers are actually parting ways with so many football players. Kyle Juszczyk is out there. That I thought was interesting. Very interesting, to say the least. But the Chiefs, listen, I'll say this about the Chiefs right now, because I even said this before the season began. I said that the Chiefs need to pull off the 3, which unfortunately they couldn't, because they're going to have a lot of turnover. They're going to lose a lot of guys. We've already seen Treshaun Wharton, Justin Reed, Justin Watson, Hopkins. I mean, a lot of these guys have moved on already. But finding a way to keep Nick Bolton and Trey Smith was a surprise to me. Give it up to Brett Veach. I mean, say what you want about contract restructures and how it does impact you down the road. The Chiefs will figure that out when they cross that bridge. They'll figure that out. No question about it. But the Chiefs, they're figuring it out right now too. And because they restructured Mahomes many times before already, they're figuring it out as they go. So the way the Chiefs are going about it right now, they've found a way to keep Nick Bolton and Trey Smith. And also Hollywood Brown. That one I was a little concerned about. And with Xavier Worthy, looks like he's not going to be suspended for whatever the hell may have or may not have happened, which is still kind of a weird one, but we have to wait and see on that one. And Rashee Rice, he's going to get his suspension. I don't think his suspension is going to be big as some of you guys might think. I think they're going to be, I've been saying this for a while. The longer this goes on for, I think a lot of people are going to be shocked when they see that Rashee Rice is only going to get like a 4-game suspension. Because I think a lot of people are expecting double of that, like an 8-game, a half a season suspension. I'm not saying that's kind of what I've been expecting, but again, the longer this goes on for, I just think this is going to end up being a situation that just takes too damn long. That's just the way I see it. Let's see. What other piece of news here do we need to cover from the Chiefs side? I think we covered everything really. Let me just quickly read a couple of comments here. Austin says, I feel bad for Higgins. Yeah, I mean, I don't feel terrible for him. I mean, he's getting millions of dollars in general. I think when you look at that organization, it's like, why are you waiting so long? This is exactly what John Dorsey got fired for. He waited too long to sign Justin Houston, and he waited too long to sign Eric Berry. And when he waited for as long as he did, those players ended up getting the most amount of money ever in their position's history at edge rusher and safety. And what happened? Justin Houston got hurt, started to miss a lot of games. What happened when they signed Eric Berry? First game, he missed. And Eric Berry didn't play from week 1 of the 2017 season all the way until week 15 of the 2018 season. Now, John Dorsey was already fired by then, but there is some truth to the fact that, and people will say this is unfair, sure, but if you sign a player to a big contract and he gets injured, that'll be held against you. If it happens multiple times, that's when he could get the pink slip. That happened to John Dorsey. I mean, there are other reasons as to why John Dorsey was fired, but giving big contracts when he could have signed those players sooner, that played a big role. Look at look at some of these other situations here. You can't wait for as long as you maybe need to or should have. Because the longer you wait on these things, the more it motivates these players to want to ball out and have these big seasons. And then they have all the leverage in the world. Unfortunately, the Bengals screwed themselves. Catherine is asking, why is Sky Moore still on the team? A lot of people are asking this. There's kind of a simple answer, and it's the fact that him being on a rookie deal helps, especially when the Chiefs are kind of in a strict bind with the salary cap. I think that certainly is one reason. By the way, it's not like Sky Moore is going to be the number 1 or the number 2 receiver on the team. I mean, he's going to be a depth guy, which I think is fine. I think that's what you want him for in the meantime. By the way, quick note here. According to Over the Cap, the Chiefs are at $28.4 million in cap space. Now, don't get too excited because Over the Cap has yet to consider Nick Bolton re-signing. They have not put in Christian Fulton or Elijah Mitchell's contracts, nor Robert Tanyan's contract. It's interesting. The Nick Bolton re-signing has not been made official yet by the Chiefs or anybody. All we know is from 3 days ago, the Chiefs did re-sign Nick Bolton, but that has not been made official yet. So I would imagine it becomes official within the next 24 to 48 hours. So we'll have to see on that one right there. We're going to take a quick break here and spend a moment to talk about my friends over at Fathead. Fathead has the best life-size wall graphics of your favorite players and team logos and has been going strong for almost 2 decades. Maybe you're looking to spice up your man cave where you watch all of your sports. Perhaps you want to add to your room where you have all of your sports memorabilia. You can get something that looks cool for your kid's bedroom. Or maybe you're a Swiftie and you want Taylor Swift's boyfriend as part of your celebrity wall. Fathead is the place to go, and if you're a Chiefs fan, you can get Fatheads of your favorite current and former Chiefs players such as Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Tony Gonzalez, Derek Thomas, and more. For those of you watching on the live stream, look for my exclusive Fathead link in the comments right now. And for those listening to the audio version, look for my exclusive Fathead link in the podcast description. When you use my link, you will get free standard US shipping when you place an order on Fathead. Use my exclusive Fathead link, get yourself some Chiefs Fathead swag, and take advantage of free shipping in the United States. All right, one last thing before we get out of here. Let's discuss Cooper Kupp because he is a free agent. Why is Cooper Kupp available? Well, number one, he's been dealing with a lot of injuries in his career. He has not played a full season since 2021, which is the year the Rams won the Super Bowl. And that was when Cooper Kupp won Super Bowl MVP. That dude had a monster season, almost 2,000 yards receiving that year. Just looking at his numbers real quickly, 145 catches, 1,947 yards, 16 touchdowns. Last year with the Rams playing 12 games, he had 100 targets, 67 catches, 710 yards, and 6 touchdowns. May not be the best numbers like he's had in years past, but it certainly has helped because they have a lot of good players on that receiving room. They had Demarcus Robinson last year. I believe Demarcus Robinson signed with the 49ers now. I'll double check on that just to make sure. And they also had Puka Nacua, who's a very good wide receiver, had a great rookie season, had a good second season as well. Unfortunately, the Rams dealt with a lot of injuries, but once they all got together and were healthy, they started playing real well, and they started winning a lot of football games too. And they found a way to get into the playoffs and win the division, the NFC West. Is Cooper Kupp a guy worth bringing into Kansas City? He's 31 years old. He turns 32 this summer. He's 1 year younger than DeAndre Hopkins. And I mentioned DeAndre Hopkins because that's who the Chiefs had recently, and they let him walk to Baltimore. Let's see. He played 15 games his rookie year in 2017. In 2019, he played 16 games, started 14 of them. 2020 played in 15 games. 2021 started all 17, but 2022 only started and played 9 games. 2023 started and played 12. 2024 started 11, played in 12. I mean, Cooper Kupp has not had a full season since 2021 for 4 seasons now. Here's my thing about injury-prone players like Cooper Kupp at that wide receiver position. How do you try to help a player, a wide receiver specifically, that's injury-prone? If you sign Cooper Kupp and make him your number one receiver, I mean, good luck. That's a disaster waiting to happen. But if Cooper Kupp is on this team for depth purposes, kind of like how Juju Smith-Schuster was last year, and I know that's not the greatest example because Juju got hurt and missed some games, but I do think that this would be something that would bode well for Kansas City. Kyle, that's a good point. Kyle stole my thunder and beat me to this. Sammy Watkins was an injury-prone player coming to Kansas City, and he missed a lot of games with the Chiefs. But when Sammy Watkins was available, I don't think Sammy Watkins got injured in 2018, though. 2018, he played all 16 games that year. Am I not mistaken? I think he may have missed a few games down the stretch in the regular season. But here's the thing: Sammy Watkins was not supposed to be a number one receiver for the Chiefs. Tyreek Hill was still your primary wide receiver. And with Sammy Watkins being opposite of Tyreek Hill, and by the way, Kelsey was a part of your offense as well, that took some pressure off Watkins. By the way, I'm looking at it right now. 2018, he missed 6 games. 2019, he missed 2 games. Okay, I mean, so he never had a full season with the Chiefs, but still ended up playing a lot of games. He definitely came through in the postseason. That's where he really excelled for the Chiefs. I look at the Chiefs right now. You have a lot of speed with Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown. Rashee Rice, I know we only saw him for 4 games, but in the games where we saw Rice, he looked bigger, he looked faster, he looked stronger. I mean, how many times were you able to watch, and again, I know small sample size because it was only 3 games, how many times were you able to watch Rashee Rice in a game last year and say, man, That plays on him. He's got to do better. I can't really recall that. Now, if he played a full season, he probably would have made some mistakes here and there. Every player does in a 17-game stretch. But I think with Rice, that's a player that can add to the speed because he just looked faster in that first game. Add Cooper Kupp to the mix. I mean, you don't have the best offensive line, specifically on the left side right now, because your offensive line on the left side looks to be, what, Jalen Moore and maybe Kingsley Suamataia for right now. I'm not really thrilled about that group of offensive linemen. I understand why Joe Toney had to go. I mean, the salary cap's a real thing. But the Chiefs, if you can at least get a good group of wide receivers here, and I think they already have it right now, but I think it would help a little more. It would provide a nice boost if you got Cooper Kupp. I'm not really sure what kind of a running back Elijah Mitchell is going to be. I know he was a backup for most of his time in San Francisco behind Christian McCaffrey and also Mason. But, you know, I think you're going to be relying on these wide receivers and Travis Kelce a lot more. And I'll include Noah Gray with that mix as well. I think the Chiefs are going to be relying a lot on their passing game, unless Isaiah Pacheco can go back to what he was his first 2 years with the Chiefs. Well, then I don't think this is a great offseason so far for the Chiefs. I think it's a good, solid offseason because they found a way to keep Nick Bolton and Trey Smith. They re-signed Hollywood Brown. They got their long snapper back. They have a left tackle they like. I personally don't like him, but the Chiefs like him. I think Christian Fulton's a good signing. The Chiefs are making moves to stay competitive here. I kind of, because of all the turnover that I told you for a while that was going to happen, and some of it has, but they've been able to keep, to my surprise, both Nick Bolton and Trey Smith, for now at least, and also found a way to keep Hollywood Brown, which I thought was massive. I think the Chiefs are still in Super Bowl contention here, and I still think, you know, people would have still predicted about the Chiefs before free agency, but I think this helps because if you ask me right after the Super Bowl, my whole thing was you're going to see a lot of turnover. And if you were to ask me the day after the Super Bowl, would the Chiefs go back to Super Bowl 59 or 60 rather? I can't keep track of these Super Bowls anymore. Too many of them. My bet would have been no. Right now, I think the Chiefs have what it takes to reach the AFC title game. Do they have what it takes to make that push to be the best team in the AFC once again for the fourth year in a row? That's a tough one. And listen, this Chiefs team, let's not forget, they led the NFL in drops 2 years ago, and they found a way to win the Super Bowl. I mean, they found a way to overcome that. They've made it to all of these Super Bowls and AFC title games with bad offensive tackle play. So if there's anyone that's really earned the benefit of the doubt, it's still Kansas City. I think Cooper Kupp would be a nice little push for your offense. I think the Chiefs' offense is still capable of contending. You certainly need to hope that the injury bug does not fly around like it did last year. Last year was a horrible year, but the Chiefs still found a way to keep winning all their football games. I know people made such a big deal about how they were all one-score games, but at least they were winning them because the Chiefs, I mean, who was Patrick Mahomes throwing to? Xavier Worthy and Justin Watson? There's a reason why they got DeAndre Hopkins midseason. If the injuries to Hollywood and to Rice never happened, Hopkins was never going to be a Chief. So the Chiefs still got through with what they could, and Hopkins didn't even play a lot of snaps. I don't know if it's because of his age or if it's because of the limited knowledge of the offense or maybe a mix of both, but Hopkins didn't really do a whole lot. I think his presence helped. Statistically, he didn't do much because his presence was important because Patrick Mahomes, his interception numbers dropped drastically ever since he joined the offense. I just think right now, the way you're looking at this team, I think your defense is going to be good. The thing I'll say about Brett Veach, he found a way to keep Chris Jones last year, and he found a way to keep Nick Bolton this year. That is huge for this defense. Listen, Treshaun Wharton, that is a major loss for this defense. And I think because the Chiefs feel like they found their left tackle and they were able to bring back Hollywood Brown and keep Nick Bolton, I think that puts the Chiefs in a position to where they might draft a defensive tackle with their first-round pick. That's what I think. Because if you saw my most recent mock draft, which has been a little over a week, I had the Chiefs going after a linebacker. With Nick Bolton coming back, I think that's off the table now. Let me ask you guys this before I sign out of here. If I had to give you two positions, and for those saying offensive line, be specific, please. If I gave you two positions that you think the Chiefs are going to go after in the first round of the draft, let's assume they don't trade. Let's just assume they stay in they keep the 31st pick. Who are the Chiefs going to go after? I think it's either going to be a left guard or a defensive tackle next to Chris Jones. Those are the two positions I think the Chiefs could go after. I think if your answer is safety, that could be an acceptable answer. Maybe you think the Chiefs might go after an offensive tackle. Something that I was thinking about the other day. Could the Chiefs still go after an offensive lineman in the first round? Maybe, and I don't know who specifically right now, but if there's an offensive lineman, because we see this in the draft from time to time, we see offensive linemen that, yeah, sure, they're listed as a left tackle, but they have experience playing left tackle and left guard, a lot of it. Not just one or two snaps. They have a lot of experience playing multiple positions. Offensive tackle, cornerback, defensive line, and edge. I assume Joshua meant defensive tackle and edge. Yeah, a couple of you guys are mentioning safety. Yeah, so a lot of okay, we got some different answers here. Okay, so it seems like the majority agrees with defensive tackle. Yeah, a couple of you guys are mentioning safety. That would not have been one of my two bets. But I can certainly understand that. If I said let's pick three positions, I think we could all agree it's either going to be left guard, defensive tackle, or safety. It's gotta be one of those three positions. Now we still have some time left in free agency, so there's still time to make moves before the draft. We're more than a month away from a month and a half from the draft. So there is still a lot of time. Yeah, a lot of you guys are saying safety. Interesting. Okay. See, I feel like the first position you would need to address would be defensive tackle. Because they drafted Keandre Coburn from Texas, I think it was last year or the year before. And they wanted to, I think they put him on the practice squad or tried to. They had him go through waivers and then they wanted to bring him back. But I think it was the Broncos who claimed him. So he never ended up coming back to Kansas City. So I think at the end of the day, if I had to bet the one position, my money would be defensive tackle. Some of you guys are saying safety. I don't think that's a bad answer. I just think maybe you can find a solid defensive back later in the draft. Some interesting answers, though. Yeah, a lot of people thinking defensive tackle and safety. Okay. All right. No wrong answers here. I mean, I'm just curious as to what you guys think. We have good safety depth now, just Jaden Hicks and Brian Cook. Yeah. I mean, listen, there's no such thing as having too many defensive backs in the NFL today. There really isn't. See, that's what I'm saying. Chris says defensive tackle could replace Wharton. That's what I'm saying. Because I do think Wharton, that's your second biggest loss. Your biggest loss is Joe Thuney. No question about it. But you still have Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. Now, what do you do with left guard? I don't know. Right now, the solution seems to be Kingsley Suamataia. That's not a solution I'm too fond of. But I suppose the Chiefs don't want to give up on their second round draft pick just yet. I mean, you don't want to draft the second round pick for one season and let him go because he failed at left tackle. I suppose there might be some value into giving him a shot at left guard. If McDuffie is going to a slot corner, then we need a shutdown corner, Aaron says. Maybe. See, how many people have said cornerback on here? I've only seen 2 people say cornerback, unless I've missed it. Warden went to the Panthers and Watson went to the Texans. Okay. Yeah, I mean, listen, you're picking at 31. Now, if we've learned anything, especially in Kansas City, draft placement is truly overrated. I mean, look at the Patrick Mahomes was the 10th pick. Who was picked before him? John Ross to the Bengals. John Ross was briefly a Chief. He retired, but then I guess he came out of retirement. Still trying to figure things out in the NFL, I guess. And then look what the Chiefs have drafted in the later rounds. Guys like Creed Humphrey, Nick Bolton in the 2nd round, Trey Smith in the 6th round. Jared Allen was a 4th round pick. Travis Kelce was a 3rd round pick. Jamal Charles was a 3rd round. Kareem Hunt, 3rd round pick. So the Chiefs have found good players in the 2nd and 3rd rounds in recent years. In 2021, 2022, for sure. So the 2022 draft class, man, that was a home run. Rashee Rice, of course, was a 2nd round pick. But that 2022 draft class, it's like, all of those players have reached the Super Bowl every year. One of them did it with the Eagles this past year. So Brett Veach knows what he's doing in the draft. And the Chiefs, they got 2 compensatory picks, both of them in the 7th round. By the way, the Chiefs, they're going to be picking last in the NFL draft. So they're going to be getting Mr. Irrelevant. The last time they had Mr. Irrelevant, they drafted Ryan Suckup. Yeah, I remember that name, Ryan Suckup, baby. I remember hearing that name live during the draft. I'm like, wait, who sucks? What? Who? But Suckup was such a good sport about that too. But yeah, I mean, Suckup ended up having a great career. Ended up winning a Super Bowl with the Bucs, unfortunately against the Chiefs, but ended up being one of the better kickers in the NFL. The Chiefs just decided to move on from him, moved on with a younger guy and Cairo Santos at the time, and then that turned into Harrison Butker. So, the Chiefs, Brett Veach loves those compensatory picks, even if they're 7th round picks. I mean, they drafted Isaiah Pacheco, who almost went undrafted. So I'm excited to see what the Chiefs are going to do with all of these draft picks here. I think they needed a couple more. Obviously, they have a high 3rd round pick because of the L'Jarius Sneed trade. That is pretty huge. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Jacoby Bryan. Oh, that'd be I mean, I'm a Jayhawk, so I'm not going to say no to that one. I think Devin Neal. Gosh, I'd be really. Listen, I love my Jayhawks, but if I got my choice between Cam Skattebo and Devin Neal, give me Skattebo, man. I think Andy Reid will do some things with him. By the way, I'll say this real quickly. Kyle Juszczyk being available. I know the Chiefs have Carson Steele. But if you ever have a chance to upgrade, I mean, gosh, I think Kyle Juszczyk would be great to have in Kansas City. I really do. I'm just thinking of all the Anthony Sherman plays the Chiefs had. They get Kyle Juszczyk. I think you bring back some of those Anthony Sherman plays back to your playbook. Kyle's asking, are the Chiefs going to lose picks for tampering? I saw the rumor. Listen, there's a lot of fake news that's out there. I have not seen one legitimate source say anything about the Chiefs tampering. It's out there. It is out there, but it's not coming from any legitimate source. The websites that are talking about the Chiefs possibly facing punishment, Athlon Sports, the U.S. Sun, and KC Kingdom. And those aren't necessarily really the greatest source of news, if we're being honest. So until that comes from a legitimate source, I don't see that happening. All right, guys. I'm going to get out of here. I appreciate all of you guys joining me for this episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. Real quickly, some housekeeping notes here. There will not be a Red Friday live chat tomorrow. There will not be a Red Friday live chat next Friday. So for the next 2 Red Friday live chats, we will be off. We'll probably try to sneak in 2 podcasts next week, since we are going to be off on the Red Friday live chat. So if you guys do have questions, I'll be willing to answer more of those next week when we do the Chief Zone. So come with some questions, since we won't have a Red Friday live chat for 2 straight weeks. And yeah, I'm sure there will be a lot more to talk about with the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'm sure we'll start to focus more of our attention to the draft now that the first couple of waves of free agency, they're in the books. We can kind of look ahead to the draft and see what the Chiefs are going to do, who they're projected to possibly get. I'll throw some names, a couple of names your way, and I'll continue to do my 7-round mock drafts on my social media for you guys. So, and we'll dive more into that next week on the podcast. I'm Farzin Vasugian. Thank you again for joining me. I'll talk to you all later. Take care.